The day was supposed to be a testament to a lifetime of love. It was our son Michael's wedding day, and my wife, Mary, and I had spared no expense. We had worked for over 40 years, building our small family business from the ground up, a humble hardware store that had served our community for decades. We had lived frugally, put away every extra dollar, and never once complained about the sacrifices. We did it for our boy. We had always dreamed of giving him a perfect start, a day he would remember as the beginning of his own beautiful life, unburdened by debt or financial worry. For us, true wealth was not measured in dollars and cents, but in the happiness and security of our children. The venue was magnificent. The Oakwood Grand Ballroom, a place so luxurious it seemed to belong on the pages of a magazine, was filled with flowers, silk draperies, and the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. This was all on our dime. When Michael first introduced us to his fiancée, Jessica, a young woman with a sharp mind and an even sharper tongue, she had laid out her vision for the wedding. She wanted a fairy tale, a day that would make her the envy of her friends. Michael, our gentle, quiet boy, had simply nodded along, his eyes filled with a love so blind he could not see the cold calculation in her requests. Mary and I saw it, but we said nothing. We had promised Michael we would give him the wedding he desired, no matter the cost. We had made a commitment, and we were not ones to break our word. We arrived at the ballroom a little after 4 in the afternoon. The ceremony was to begin in an hour. We were dressed in our finest. Mary wore a pale blue dress that matched the color of her eyes, and I was in a suit that, while well-worn, was clean and pressed. We were proud to be there, proud to have been able to provide this for our son. As we walked through the grand doors, a young woman with a clipboard stopped us. "Are you at the groom's party?" she asked, her voice officious. "We are the parents of the groom," I said with a smile, holding Mary's hand. "John and Mary." Her eyes went wide with a flicker of something that looked like panic. "Oh, I am sorry. I was not informed you would be coming at this time. The bridal party is preparing. You will need to take a seat in the main hall." It was a strange thing to say. We were the parents of the groom. Of course we would be there. But we did not think anything of it. We made our way into the ballroom, a magnificent sight to behold. The tables were set with gleaming silverware, each centerpiece a towering arrangement of white roses and lilies. The room was already starting to fill with guests, the air buzzing with polite chatter and the clinking of glasses. We found our designated table, a small one tucked away in the very back corner, near the service entrance. We sat down, our smiles still in place, although a small, nagging feeling of unease had begun to creep in. As we waited, we watched as the other guests arrived. We saw Jessica's parents, her father in a perfectly tailored suit and her mother in a shimmering gown. They were greeted with a flurry of hugs and kisses, their every need attended to by a team of event planners. They were seated at a large, round table at the very front, closest to the stage where the head table would be. It was the place of honor, the place we had always assumed we would occupy. We looked at each other, and the question hung unspoken between us. Why were we here, in the back, while they were up front? I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself it was a minor detail. Maybe it was a last-minute change. Maybe it was just an oversight. The ceremony was beautiful, if a little impersonal. We watched from our distant table as our son, our Michael, stood at the altar, his face a picture of pure happiness. Jessica walked down the aisle, a vision in her designer gown, a gown we had paid for, and she did not spare us a single glance. Our hearts ached, a small, quiet pain, but we told ourselves it was her day. It was about them, and we would be happy for them. After the ceremony, the guests began to mingle. We saw Michael from afar, a radiant smile on his face as he greeted guests. We waited for our turn, assuming he would come to us, but he did not. He was so busy, so consumed with his new wife and his new life, that he did not see us. The hours dragged on, and we felt like ghosts at our own son's wedding. The music played, the champagne flowed, but we sat there alone and ignored, two islands in a sea of celebration. It was a searing pain, the kind that goes beyond a simple ache and settles deep in your bones. It was the feeling of being an afterthought, of being a means to an end. Then, just as the reception was about to begin, we saw Jessica approaching. Her face was not smiling. Her expression was one of cold, detached disapproval. She stopped at our table, looking down at us as if we were something unpleasant she had found on the bottom of her shoe. "What are you two doing here?" she asked, her voice a low, venomous hiss. Mary and I were taken aback. "Jessica, we are here for the reception," Mary said, a soft, polite confusion in her voice. "You are not supposed to be here," she stated, her eyes hard and cold. "This is a private event. You were only invited to the ceremony." I sent a message to Michael, but he must have forgotten to tell you. My blood ran cold. The words hit me like a physical blow. The humiliation was so profound, so complete, that I could not find my voice. We had paid for everything. Every centerpiece, every glass of champagne, every silk drape, was a product of our life's work. And now, the woman we had paid to make happy was telling us we were not welcome. "What do you mean we are not invited?" I managed to say, my voice a strained whisper. "We are Michael's parents. We are the hosts of this event." Jessica gave a short, humorless laugh. "You think you are the hosts? You think this is your party? This is my day. My vision. And my vision does not include you two. I have a certain aesthetic I want to maintain, and frankly, you do not fit in. I have already made arrangements for a small, simple dinner for you at a nice restaurant nearby. You should go now." The audacity of her words was breathtaking. I looked at my wife, and I saw the pain in her eyes. It was a deep, soul-crushing sadness. We had always loved our son unconditionally, given him everything he needed and more. We had thought that our love would be enough. But it was not. It was just a transaction, a business deal. We paid for the party, and now we were being dismissed. "Jessica, how can you say such a thing?" Mary said, her voice trembling with emotion. "This is your son, my son. How can you stand there and say we are not good enough?" Jessica's eyes narrowed. "Do not make a scene, old woman. The guests are watching. Just leave. Now. Before I have security remove you." Security. The word hung in the air, a final, cruel flourish to her dismissal. We had funded this entire charade, and she was threatening to have us thrown out. I felt a surge of rage, a deep, burning indignation that I had not felt in years. But before I could speak, I felt Mary's hand on my arm, a gentle, restraining pressure. I looked at her, and in her eyes I saw not just sorrow, but a quiet dignity. She would not let us be humiliated further. "It is all right, John," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Let us go." We stood up, our hearts heavy, our spirits crushed. We walked out of the ballroom, a million eyes on our backs. I could feel the whispers, the stares, the uncomfortable silence we left in our wake. We walked past the smiling guests, past the towering floral arrangements, past the glistening crystal, and every step was a fresh blow to our pride. We walked past our son, who was laughing with his new wife and her family, a boy we no longer recognized. He did not see us. Or perhaps he saw us and chose to look away. That thought was more painful than anything Jessica had said. We made it out of the ballroom, out into the cool evening air. The night was crisp and clear, but we felt nothing but a cold, empty ache. We walked to our car, our steps slow and measured, two figures lost in a world that had suddenly become foreign. We sat in the car for a long time, the silence broken only by the sound of our ragged breathing. I put my head in my hands, and I felt the deep, hot sting of tears. It was not just about the money. It was about love, about respect, about a lifetime of sacrifice that had just been spat upon. "What are we going to do, Mary?" I asked, my voice choked with emotion. Mary sat for a moment, her gaze fixed on the rearview mirror, her face a mask of quiet resolve. "We go home," she said. "And we make them regret this." Her words were not angry. They were not filled with rage. They were filled with a quiet, steely determination. And in that moment, I knew that they had made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated us. They had mistaken our love for weakness, our kindness for foolishness. They had taken a lifetime of sacrifice and thrown it back in our faces. And for that, there would be consequences. They had a wedding, and we had a lifetime of lessons to teach them. They were about to learn that the real gift was not the one they had received, but the one they were about to lose. The night was long. We did not speak on the drive home. The silence was not awkward. It was a sanctuary, a shared space where we could both process the devastating betrayal we had just experienced. We arrived back at our humble home, the one we had raised our son in, and for the first time, it did not feel like a sanctuary. It felt like a monument to our failure, to the fact that we had given our all for a boy who had allowed a stranger to treat us with such disdain. The pot roast Martha had prepared for the family dinner, the apple pie, all the beautiful things were tainted. We went to bed that night, but neither of us could sleep. We lay there, side by side, our hearts heavy with grief. My mind replayed the scene at the wedding over and over again. The cold look in Jessica's eyes, the way Michael did not even acknowledge our presence, the casual cruelty of it all. How could he do that? How could our son, the boy we had loved and cherished, just stand there and watch as we were humiliated? The questions ran through my mind on a continuous loop, an endless, agonizing cycle of pain and confusion. It was not just the act of being told to leave, it was the complete disregard for our feelings, our dignity, our very existence. It was as if we were not people, but objects, things to be used and discarded once their purpose was served. And that thought, that realization, was more painful than any insult. In the morning, the sun rose, but the light did not seem to penetrate the darkness in our hearts. We ate breakfast in silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. The phone rang, and it was my sister, calling to ask about the wedding. I told her it was wonderful, that we had had a great time. I did not have the heart to tell her the truth. The truth was a heavy, shameful thing, and I did not want to burden her with it. It was our cross to bear, a private sorrow we had to carry. We had always prided ourselves on our strength, on our ability to overcome any obstacle. But this was different. This was not an obstacle to be overcome, it was a betrayal to be endured. As the day went on, the weight of the injustice began to turn into a simmering anger. It was a cold, quiet rage, but it was there, a hard knot of resentment in my stomach. I looked at Mary, and I saw the same look in her eyes. It was not the look of a victim, it was the look of a warrior, a woman who had been wronged and who was not going to take it lying down. We had given them everything, our money, our time, our love, our very selves. And they had repaid us with contempt. They had treated us like dirt, like we were nothing more than a burden. And for that, there would be a reckoning. They had underestimated us, and they were about to find out just what a mistake that was. I went into the study and sat down at my desk. I pulled out a blank sheet of paper and a pen. I had not written a letter in years, but I knew what I had to do. I began to write, my hand steady, my mind clear. I wrote a letter to Michael. I wrote a letter to Jessica. I did not mention the wedding. I did not mention the humiliation. I just wrote about money. About the money we had saved, the money we had worked for, the money we had given them. I listed all the expenses, every single one, from the cost of the ballroom to the cost of the flowers. I wrote down the grand total, a number so large it made my hand tremble. And then, at the end, I wrote one simple sentence. This is the total amount of money we have ever given you. You have now received your last financial gift from us. I did not mail it. Not yet. I just folded it up and put it in a drawer. It was not a threat, it was a promise. A promise to ourselves that we would never again allow ourselves to be treated with such disrespect. We had to do something. We could not just sit back and let them get away with this. We needed a plan. A plan that would not only give us our dignity back, but would also show them just how wrong they were. We had to show them that we were not just a source of money, not just a burden, but people with their own lives, their own dreams, their own worth. And that thought, that newfound resolve, was the first ray of light in the darkness that had surrounded us since the day of the wedding. We spent the next few days in a quiet, somber state, but a new resolve was growing. We had a long, frank discussion about our future. We had always assumed we would leave our house to Michael. It was the plan, the promise we had made to him when he was a boy. But now, that promise felt like a lie. It was a promise made to a boy who no longer existed, a promise made to a son who had allowed us to be publicly humiliated. The thought of giving him the house now, of giving him one more thing he did not earn and did not deserve, felt like a deep betrayal of ourselves. We were not going to do that. We were not going to reward their greed and their cruelty. We began to go through our financial documents. We had always been good with money, frugal and careful. We had not spent a lot on ourselves, instead choosing to put our money away for a rainy day, for our old age, and for our son. We had invested wisely, and over the years, our savings had grown to a considerable sum. We had never talked about it with Michael. He had always assumed we were comfortable, but he had no idea just how well we had done. It was our little secret, our nest egg, our security blanket. And now it was going to become our weapon. The first step was to change our will. We had a will, of course, a simple one that left everything to Michael. We had to change that. We made an appointment with a new lawyer, a kind, older woman named Eleanor, who was a friend of ours. She was a good friend, a person we trusted with our lives. She listened patiently as we told her the story of the wedding, her face a mixture of shock and anger. She was a mother herself, and she understood our pain. She did not judge us. She just nodded, her eyes filled with a deep, compassionate understanding. She was our silent ally, our confidant, and we were grateful for her presence. "What do you want to do?" she asked us gently. "We want to change our will," I said, my voice firm. "We do not want to leave anything to Michael." "That is a drastic step, John," she said, her voice soft, but her eyes unwavering. "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" "Yes," Mary said, her voice a whisper, but her resolve as strong as steel. "We are sure. We want to leave our money to the people who deserve it, to the people who show us respect. And that is not our son." Eleanor did not argue with us. She just nodded and began to draw up the new papers. She was a professional, and she knew her job. She helped us go through our assets, our bank accounts, our investments, and our property. It was a long, arduous process, but it was also a cleansing one. We were taking back control of our lives. We were reclaiming our dignity. We were showing them that we were not helpless, that we had not lost our minds, that we were not to be trifled with. We were old, yes, but we were not weak. We were not frail. We were strong. We were resilient. And we were about to show them just how much power we still held. The new will was drawn up. We left our house to our niece, a young woman who had always been kind and respectful to us. We left our savings to a charity for homeless veterans, a cause we had always supported. And to Michael, we left nothing. Nothing at all. It was a painful thing to do, a deep, sorrowful action that went against every instinct we had ever had. But it was also necessary. It was a final, definitive statement that we would not be disrespected, that we would not be taken for granted, that our love was not for sale. The will was signed, sealed, and put away in a safe deposit box. It was our secret, our final gift to our son. But we were not done yet. We had to show them. We had to let them know. We had to make them feel the sting of our rejection, the weight of their own greed. It was not about revenge, not really. It was about justice. It was about making them see the value of what they had thrown away. Mary had an idea. It was a small, simple thing, but it was brilliant. She said she was tired of her old clothes. She said she wanted something new, something that would make her feel beautiful again. Something that would make her feel like a person, not a burden. She wanted to go to a designer boutique in a part of town we had never been to before. A place where the clothes were so expensive they made our heads spin. I did not question her. I just nodded and told her that we would go. We would go, and we would show them just what a burden we were not. The plan was not fully formed yet, but we had a beginning. We had a spark of rebellion. And that, in and of itself, was a beautiful thing. It was the first step on a new path, a path of independence and self-worth. It was our journey to reclaim our lives, to take back the dignity that had been so cruelly stolen from us. It was our gift to ourselves. And it was going to be the sweetest, most satisfying gift we had ever given. The next part of our story was about to begin, and it was going to be filled with the sweet, satisfying taste of victory. The silence that followed our decision to change the will was a fragile peace. It was the calm before the storm. We had signed the papers, stored them away, and felt a quiet, grim satisfaction. But we knew this was not the end. It was merely the beginning of a war they had declared, a war for which we were now finally armed. Mary and I spent the next few days in a strange state of heightened awareness, waiting for the other shoe to drop. We were no longer the gentle, sacrificing parents. We were defenders of our dignity, warriors in a fight we never wanted. The shame and grief of the wedding were still a heavy cloak, but a new, cold resolve had replaced the crushing despair. We had to prepare for their inevitable retaliation. The phone rang precisely at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, a time we usually spent enjoying our coffee and the morning newspaper. The caller ID flashed Michael. Mary and I looked at each other, a shared, silent understanding passing between us. This was it. I picked up the phone, my hands surprisingly steady. "Dad?" Michael's voice was not warm. It was clipped, rushed, and tinged with a petulance I had not heard since his teenage years. "Michael," I said, my voice flat, devoid of the usual affection. "Listen, I do not have a lot of time," he said, skipping any pleasantries. "Jessica and I need to talk to you. Can you come over tonight? We have some very important things to discuss about your future." The words "your future" sounded like a threat. My grip on the phone tightened. "What is so urgent, Michael?" "Just come," he said impatiently. "It is about the house and other assets. It is for your own good. We want to help you." "Help us?" I could feel the anger bubbling in my chest. "You have a strange way of helping, son." He ignored my jab. "We will see you at 7 then." And with that, he hung up. The abruptness of his call was a testament to their new reality. We were not his parents to be cherished. We were a problem to be managed. We were an obstacle to their ambitions. Mary and I arrived at their house that evening with heavy hearts. The two-story suburban home was immaculate, decorated in a minimalist style that felt cold and unwelcoming. It was beautiful, but it had none of the warmth of our own home. Jessica greeted us at the door, her face a mask of practiced politeness. Michael was sitting on a plush sofa, his eyes glued to his phone. He did not look up, not even for a moment. "We need to be direct," Jessica began, gesturing for us to sit on the opposite sofa. "Michael and I have been thinking a lot since the wedding. It is a new chapter for us, and we are looking at our future. We have been so busy planning, we have not had time to deal with your situation." "Our situation?" Mary asked, her voice quiet but filled with a dangerous edge. "Yes," Jessica continued, oblivious to the frost in Mary's tone. "The house, for starters. It is just too much. The market is hot. We have a real estate agent on standby. He can have it listed by the end of the week. You could get an incredible price, a price that would secure your future and ours." I could not believe the audacity of her words. She was not even trying to hide her true intentions. This was not about our future, it was about their financial gain. "Jessica, we are not selling our house," I said, my voice low and firm. "We have already made that clear." Jessica's polite facade cracked. Her eyes flashed with annoyance. "John, do not be so difficult. We are trying to do this the easy way. This is not just about the house. We have also had a look at your finances." My blood ran cold. "How did you do that?" I asked, my voice a strangled whisper. "Michael is your son," she said, as if that explained everything. "He had some of your account information on file. Your savings, your retirement fund, it is all just sitting there. You are not investing it. You are not putting it to good use. It is just dead money. We could use it to help you, to help us. To invest in a better life. My son did this." The thought hit me harder than anything. The boy we had raised, the one we had given everything to, had betrayed our trust, had shared our financial details with his calculating wife. The pain of the wedding was nothing compared to this. It was a complete and utter violation. It was the final nail in the coffin of my love for him. "You have no right," Mary said, her voice rising with a fury I had not heard from her in years. "You have no right to look at our finances, to judge our life choices. This is our money, our house. Not yours." Jessica did not flinch. "You are not thinking clearly, Mary. You are old. You are sentimental. You are clinging to the past. It is time for you to let go and let us take care of you. We have already found a lovely one-story apartment for you, and we can manage your finances from now on. We will give you an allowance to live on, and we will take care of all the bills. It is for the best, really. You would not want to lose your hard-earned money to some scam, would you? Her tone was condescending, as if she were talking to two children. I felt a surge of rage so powerful it made my hands tremble. We are not children, Jessica. We are not idiots. And we are not going to be managed by you. Then we will have to make you, Michael said, finally looking up from his phone, his voice cold and devoid of emotion. You are putting us in a very difficult position. If you do not cooperate, we will have to find other ways to take care of you. Other ways? Mary asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Yes, Jessica said, her eyes gleaming with a malicious light. We can get a legal power of attorney. We can have you declared unfit to manage your own affairs. It is not what we want to do, but if you leave us no choice, we will. We are your children. It is our duty to protect you from yourselves. The words unfit and duty were a cruel, twisted mockery of love and family. They were using the very institutions meant to protect the vulnerable to strip us of our autonomy. This was not about love or care. It was about greed, pure and simple. They wanted our money. They wanted our house. They wanted to strip us of our dignity and leave us with nothing. I looked at Mary, and I saw a reflection of my own fury. Her face was a mask of cold, controlled rage. She was not afraid. She was not intimidated. She was ready to fight. And I was ready to fight with her. We had already been to the lawyer. We had already changed the will. We had already protected ourselves from their greed. They had no idea. And that thought, that one small, powerful secret, gave me a strength I had not felt in years. We are not going anywhere, I said, my voice a low, steady rumble. We are not selling our house. We are not giving you our money. And we are not going to be managed by you. Do you think we are bluffing? Michael asked, a flicker of genuine anger in his eyes. We think you are being cruel, Mary said, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. We give you everything, Michael. And this is how you repay us? By trying to take what little we have left. Michael looked away, but Jessica did not. You have left us no choice, she said, her voice cold and final. Expect to hear from our lawyer soon. With that, she turned her back on us. It was a gesture of complete dismissal, a final insult. Mary and I stood up, our hearts pounding with a mixture of rage and grief. We had just been threatened by our own son and his wife. We had been told that we were not fit to live our own lives. We had been treated like a burden, an obstacle, a thing to be controlled and managed. We walked out of their house, not as victims, but as survivors. We had faced the fire, and we had not been burned. We had been forged, tempered, and made stronger. We were not going to lie down and let them walk all over us. We were going to fight back. And we were going to win. They had no idea what they were up against. They had no idea that we were already 2 steps ahead of them. They had no idea that their greed was about to lead them to a place they would never be able to come back from. We were not done. We were just getting started. The real gift was about to begin. The threat of legal action from Michael and Jessica's lawyer, a cold, formal letter filled with legalese and veiled accusations of our inability to manage our affairs, did nothing to intimidate us. In fact, it had the opposite effect. It was an invigorating slap in the face. It confirmed that this was no longer a family disagreement. It was a hostile takeover attempt. And we were not going to surrender. The fear we had felt in their home, the raw humiliation of their contempt, had been replaced by a fierce, protective resolve. We were not just fighting for our house and our savings. We were fighting for our right to live our lives with dignity. They want to fight, Mary said, holding the letter. Her voice was steady, but her grip on the paper was so tight her knuckles were white. Then we will give them one. The very next day, we made our first move. We called our lawyer, Eleanor, and met with her in her office. We handed her the letter, and she read it with a look of quiet disgust. This is not about your well-being, she stated flatly. This is about greed. They are trying to bully you into submission. Do not worry. We will handle this. Her calm professionalism was a balm to our wounded souls. She told us to go about our lives as normally as possible and to leave the legal maneuvering to her. We left her office that day with a new sense of purpose. We were no longer on the defensive, we were on the offensive. Our first act of defiance was small, but it felt monumental. The very next morning, we drove to a part of town we had never visited before, a neighborhood filled with trendy boutiques and art galleries. We parked in front of a chic storefront with the name Aura written in elegant script. Mary had seen an advertisement for it in a magazine and had decided on a whim that she wanted to go. This was not the kind of place we normally shopped at. Our clothes were practical, comfortable, and well-worn. They were not fashionable. But today, we were not shopping for comfort. We were shopping for dignity. A young, stylish saleswoman greeted us. Her eyes, I could not help but notice, seemed to judge our simple, old-fashioned attire. But we did not let it bother us. We walked through the store, looking at the beautiful, impossibly expensive clothes. Mary picked up a silk blouse, her eyes gleaming. It was a beautiful color, a vibrant amethyst that would make her eyes shine. She held it against her skin, and for the first time since the wedding, I saw a flicker of the old Mary, the joyful, vibrant woman I had married. "Try it on, sweetheart," I said, a smile forming on my lips. "It would look beautiful on you." She disappeared into the dressing room, and I waited, my heart pounding with a strange mixture of excitement and fear. A few minutes later, she emerged. The blouse transformed her. It clung to her slender frame, and the color brought a warmth to her face. She looked younger, more vibrant, more confident. She looked like a woman who was not to be trifled with. "It is beautiful," she said, looking at her reflection in the full-length mirror. "But it is so expensive, John." "Price is no object," I said, my voice firm. "We are buying it. And we are buying more." We spent the rest of the afternoon in that store, shopping with a newfound abandon. We bought a beautiful suit for me, a dress for Mary that was a stunning shade of emerald, and a number of accessories. But we did not just buy for ourselves. We also bought a beautiful silk scarf for our niece, Sarah, the kind, young woman who had always been so respectful to us. We chose it carefully, a beautiful, hand-painted piece with a delicate floral pattern. It was a gesture of love, a small, tangible gift to show her our appreciation. It was a symbol, a message to ourselves that our money was not just for us, but for those who had earned our love and respect. When we left the store, our arms were filled with bags. It was a ridiculous amount of money to spend on clothes, but it was not just clothes. It was an investment in ourselves, a purchase of our self-worth. A few days later, the real estate agent for our house, a man we had known for years, called. He was a friend of Michael's and had been on Michael and Jessica's side of the conversation. He called to check in and see how we were doing. But his voice was not warm, it was laced with an unprofessional, condescending tone. "Mr. and Mrs. Smith," he said, using our last name with a hint of a sneer. "I am just calling to let you know that I have a potential buyer for your house. I can have the paperwork ready by the end of the week. You will not find a better deal. It is for your own good, really." I felt a surge of rage. How dare he? How dare he pressure us like this? I handed the phone to Mary, who had been listening to the conversation with a quiet, simmering anger. "Mr. Peterson," she said, her voice surprisingly calm. "We are not selling our house. We have already made that clear to Michael and Jessica. We are not interested in your services. We will be taking our business elsewhere." "Taking your business elsewhere?" he scoffed. "And where would that be? You are not a young couple, you know. This is a very complex market." "We will be taking our business to a person who respects us," she said, and then, with a click, she hung up. The silence that followed was a glorious victory. We had stood up to them, to their bullying, to their insults. We were no longer afraid. We were now on a path of our own making, a path that would lead us to a place of our own choosing. A few days later, we received a call from a luxury car dealership, a place we had only ever driven by. We were not sure how they got our number. But the salesman on the phone, a man with a smooth, professional voice, said he had an anonymous referral and that we were pre-approved for a test drive in a new luxury SUV. It was a mystery, but we decided to go. It was part of our new journey, our new, dignified lives. We drove to the dealership, a massive, glass-walled building filled with gleaming, impossibly expensive cars. We were greeted by the salesman, a man named Robert, who was polite and respectful. He did not judge our old car or our simple clothes. He treated us like we were the most important people in the world. He showed us a beautiful, sleek black SUV, a car that cost more than our first house. Mary sat in the driver's seat, her eyes wide with a look of pure wonder. She gripped the steering wheel, her face a picture of pure, unadulterated joy. "This is it," she said, her voice a whisper. "This is the car I have always dreamed of." We bought it. It was an impulsive, ridiculous decision, but it felt right. It was a defiant act, a statement to the world that we were not done, that we were not a burden, that we still had a life to live. And as we drove away in our new car, the feeling of exhilaration was intoxicating. We were free. We were not controlled by our son, by his greedy wife, or by their contempt. We were in control of our own lives. But the most painful confrontation was yet to come. A week later, we were at the supermarket, buying groceries. We were pushing our cart through the aisles when we heard a voice call our names. It was our daughter-in-law, Jessica. She was with her mother, a woman with a sharp face and an even sharper tongue. They were standing at the end of the aisle, their eyes fixed on us with a look of stunned disbelief. "What are you two doing here?" Jessica asked, her voice filled with a mixture of shock and anger. "I thought you were going to be getting your affairs in order. We have not heard from your lawyer." "Our affairs are in order, Jessica," Mary said, her voice calm and steady. "And our lawyer is in contact with yours. We are just doing some grocery shopping, like normal people." Jessica's mother, a woman named Carol, stepped forward. "I do not understand," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You are not going to be able to afford to live this life for long. You need to be more realistic. My daughter is just trying to help you. She is worried about you." Mary looked at her, and a sad, hollow laugh escaped her lips. "Worried about us?" "She is worried about her inheritance." "We are not selling our house, Carol. And we are not giving up our independence. We have a beautiful life, and we are going to live it. On our terms." Jessica looked at us, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You are just pretending," she said, her voice low and filled with contempt. "You are putting on a show. You are trying to make us feel bad. But it is not going to work. We are going to get what we deserve." I looked at my wife, and a silent understanding passed between us. We were no longer fighting for them to see our love. We were fighting for our right to be. And in that moment, I knew we had won. The battle for their hearts and minds had been lost a long time ago. But the battle for our dignity, for our self-worth, for our freedom, that battle was just beginning. They did not know the secret we held, the secret that would change everything. The real gift was not the money they had taken from us, it was the life they had forced us to find for ourselves. And it was a beautiful, priceless thing. The days following our encounter with Jessica and her mother at the supermarket were filled with a strange, nervous energy. We felt like we were playing a game of chess, and we had just made a bold, unexpected move. We were no longer reacting to their attacks, we were initiating our own. The new car sat in our driveway, a gleaming black testament to our defiance. Mary wore her new silk blouses, her face radiant with a newfound confidence. She seemed to stand taller, her shoulders straighter. We were living our lives, but with a purpose, a quiet, calculated rebellion. The phone rang often. It was usually Michael, his voice a confusing mix of frustration and thinly veiled curiosity. "Dad," he would say, "I saw you at the supermarket. You seemed different. Is everything all right? We are worried about you." The words were hollow. He did not sound worried, he sounded suspicious. His voice was laced with a desperate need to understand our actions, to fit us back into the box he and Jessica had created for us. I would give him short, clipped answers. "We are just fine, Michael. We are doing very well. We are enjoying our lives." He would press for more. "But the car? The clothes? How are you affording all of that? Did you win the lottery?" I would just laugh. "We have our ways, son. You do not need to worry about us. You have your own life to live." Our conversations had become a dance, a strange ballet of hidden meanings and unspoken truths. He was trying to figure out our hand, and we were determined not to show it. It was a painful thing to do, to hold our son at arm's length, but it was necessary. We had to protect ourselves. We had to show him that we were not just a source of money, not just a burden, but people with our own lives, our own secrets. A few weeks later, we got a letter from Michael and Jessica's lawyer, a different one this time. It was a formal invitation to a family dinner. The letter was polite, almost obsequious, and it was clear that it had not been written by them. It was a lawyer's desperate attempt to de-escalate the situation, to bring us back to the table. The invitation was a stark contrast to their previous threat of legal action. It was a sign of their desperation, a sign that our actions were having an effect. "What do you think, John?" Mary asked, holding the letter. "Do we go?" I looked at her, and I saw a flicker of the old sadness in her eyes. She wanted to believe they had changed. She wanted to believe that this was a genuine attempt at reconciliation. But I knew better. This was not about love, it was about strategy. They were trying to lure us back in, to get us to let our guard down. "We go," I said, my voice firm. "But we go on our own terms. We are not going to be lectured. We are not going to be judged. We are going to go, and we are going to enjoy our meal. And we are going to show them that we are not the same people they threw out of the wedding." The dinner was at their house. We arrived in our new car, and the look on Michael's face when he saw it was priceless. His eyes went wide, and his jaw dropped. Jessica was there, and she looked at us with a cold, suspicious glare. Her mother was also there, and her face was a mask of furious indignation. It was clear that they had been discussing us, our new life, our newfound confidence. Dinner was tense. They asked us about our new car, about our new clothes, about our new life. We gave them vague, non-committal answers. We talked about our new hobbies, about the beautiful places we were visiting, about the amazing people we were meeting. We talked about everything except money. We did not mention our savings. We did not mention our investments. We just talked about our life, a life they had no part in. "I do not understand," Jessica said, her voice filled with a desperate frustration. "How are you affording all of this?" "You are not. You did not." She could not bring herself to say the words. "You did not sell the house, did you?" Mary smiled, a slow, beautiful, triumphant smile. "We are living our lives, Jessica. We are enjoying our money. The money we worked for. The money we saved. The money that belongs to us." The words were a direct hit. Jessica's face went pale. Michael looked from her to us, his eyes filled with confusion and fear. He had always assumed we would give him everything. He had always assumed we were a blank check, a financial resource to be used as he saw fit. And now he was faced with the terrifying reality that we were not. We were people. We were individuals. We had our own lives. And we had our own money. "But the will?" Michael asked, his voice a strained whisper. "What about the will?" "You were going to leave everything to me." "The will we had," I said, my voice low and steady, "was made for the son we thought we had. The son who would not allow his mother and father to be thrown out of his wedding. The son who would not try to take their dignity from them. That will no longer exists, Michael. It has been replaced." The words hung in the air, a final, definitive statement. Michael looked at us, his eyes filled with a mixture of shock, grief, and a dawning horror. He had finally understood. We had not just bought a new car and new clothes. We had bought our freedom. And we had taken his inheritance with us. The real gift was not the one they had received, it was the one they had lost. The one they had forfeited by their own greed and contempt. The battle was over. And we had won. The silence that followed my words was not just silence, it was a living, breathing entity. It was heavy with shock, thick with disbelief, and suffocating with the dawning horror on their faces. Michael's jaw was slack, his eyes wide, and the color had drained from his face. Jessica's carefully constructed composure had shattered. Her face, usually so cool and calculating, was a contorted mask of fury and panic. Her mother, Carol, was the only one who found her voice a high, strangled shriek. "You cannot be serious. You cannot do that. This is our family. This is our inheritance," she cried, her voice a piercing shriek that cut through the silence. Mary looked at her, and a small, sad smile touched her lips. "This is not your family, Carol," she said, her voice a calm, steady counterpoint to the chaos. "This is a transaction. You taught your daughter to treat us like a means to an end. We are simply showing you that the transaction has been terminated. The debt has been paid." I stood up, holding my hand out to Mary. She took it, her grip firm and warm. We stood there for a moment, two figures united against the storm of their greed. We did not say another word. We did not need to. Everything that needed to be said had been said. We simply turned and walked out of the house, leaving them in the wreckage of their own making. The sound of our car door closing was a soft click, but to us it was a gunshot, a final, definitive period at the end of a very long sentence. The drive home was quiet, but it was not the suffocating silence of defeat. It was the peaceful silence of victory. We held hands, and in the darkness of the car, I felt the tears finally come. They were not tears of sorrow or grief, but tears of release. We had done it. We had stood up to them. We had reclaimed our dignity. "They will call," Mary said softly, her voice still filled with that quiet resolve. "They will plead. They will threaten. They will beg. We will not answer," I said, my voice firm. "We will not engage. We will not be their victims anymore." And we did not. The phone began to ring almost as soon as we stepped into the house. It was Michael. Then Jessica. Then Michael again, and again, and again. We let it ring. We turned it off. The voicemails piled up, a deluge of frantic, pleading, and angry messages. They were no longer condescending. They were desperate. They had been so certain of their power, so secure in their belief that we were a resource to be exploited, and the dawning reality of their mistake was a bitter pill to swallow. The next few weeks were a strange, peaceful blur. We went to Paris. We had always dreamed of it, of walking through the cobbled streets, of sitting in a small cafe, of seeing the Eiffel Tower. We booked a flight, a luxury hotel, and we went. We did not tell a soul. We did not send a postcard. We just went, and we lived. We lived as if we had been given a new lease on life, a new beginning. We were no longer John and Mary, the old couple who had been wronged. We were just John and Mary, two people in love, exploring the world. Our trip was a revelation. We were not just living, we were thriving. We went to museums, we ate at amazing restaurants, and we danced in the streets. We met people who did not know our story, who did not see us as a source of money or a burden. They saw us as people, as individuals, as two people in love. It was a liberation. It was a beautiful, priceless gift. When we returned, we went to our lawyer's office. Eleanor was waiting for us with a quiet smile. "They have been calling nonstop," she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "They're demanding to know the contents of your will. They are threatening legal action." "What did you tell them?" Mary asked, her eyes twinkling. "I told them what they needed to hear," she said. "I told them that the will is sealed, and it will be read when the time comes. I told them that all of your assets are in a trust, and they have no legal standing to make any claims. And I told them to stop harassing us. I do not think they will be calling again." The final confrontation came a few weeks later. It was not a formal meeting, it was a chance encounter. We were at the local farmer's market, picking out fresh vegetables. We saw Michael and Jessica from a distance. They were standing at a stand, their faces grim, their bodies rigid with tension. They saw us too, and for a moment, they looked away. But then, Michael's face hardened with a desperate resolve. He began to walk towards us. "Dad," he said, his voice pleading. "We need to talk. We have made a terrible mistake. We are so sorry." "What is there to talk about, Michael?" I asked, my voice calm. "We have nothing to say to each other." "But—" "The inheritance," he said, his voice a strained whisper. "We have been planning on it. Jessica lost her job. We are in so much debt. We cannot afford the house. We need your help." I looked at him, and I saw a stranger. This was not my son. This was a man consumed by greed, a man who had only come to us in a moment of crisis, a man who had no love for us, only for our money. The boy I had loved, the son I had raised, was gone. You made your choices, Michael, I said, my voice filled with a quiet sadness. You chose to humiliate us. You chose to try and take our dignity. You chose to threaten us with lawyers. You chose to put a house and a car before your own family. And now you have to live with those choices. Jessica, who had been listening in a furious silence, finally exploded. You are being selfish, she screamed. You are just being old and bitter. You are punishing us for something that you brought on yourselves. You should be helping us. Help you, Mary said, her voice a whip of controlled fury. We gave you a perfect wedding. We gave you a life free of debt. We gave you everything we had. And you spat in our faces. We gave you the greatest gift a parent could give a child, unconditional love. But you had no use for it. You only wanted the money. And now you have nothing. With that, we turned our backs on them and walked away. We did not look back. We did not need to. We had already given them their final gift. We had given them the gift of a lifetime lesson, the lesson that money cannot buy happiness, that greed does not pay, and that true wealth is not measured in dollars and cents, but in the love and respect you have for others. Our story did not end there. We sold our house to our niece, a young woman who had always treated us with kindness and respect. We used the money to start a charity for the elderly, a charity that would help people who were in our position, people who had been abandoned and betrayed by their own families. We lived our lives with a newfound purpose, a deep sense of peace, and a quiet, profound joy. We were not just survivors, we were thrivers. We had lost a son, but we had gained a life. And that, in the end, was the greatest gift of all.